Welcome to DPC Pediatrician. We're Dr. Phil Boucher
and Dr. Marina Capella, two DPC pediatricians who are on a mission to share our love of direct primary care with you.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of DPC Pediatricians. I will say that, I don't know if you noticed, if you watch these on YouTube or Substack, you'll notice that we wear the same clothes for several episodes because we record these in bulk, but we were looking at our list and kind of started our conversation before we actually started hitting record about scribes. And it is something that I realized that there's a lot of different choices out there, and Marina had to really quickly look up the settings for, and I did too, for my Heidi to see what we were doing because we were doing vastly different things. Today we're talking about AI scribes, and for me this has been a game changer. I will take you back to 2016ish when I was at my busy pediatric private practice, and I was like, I think people are using scribes. Let's get some scribes. I got them to start a program. We would have a computer on wheels, which was like a laptop on a little stand with wheels on it. And I had a a pre-medical student come in with me for every visit, and he would wheel his little cart in, and he got really good at doing the notes. Before I even said what I was going to do, I could tell he was clicking to put in a specific antibiotic or something that I was going to do because he got so used to it. And despite being not even in medical school yet, he would come out and be like, do you think that kid has autism? And things along those lines where
wow, that's impressive.
I know he had such good, because he had 4,000 clinical visits per year for 2 or 3 years. And so he saw just so much clinical pediatric medicine. And then he went off to medical school, and I just got a text from him actually the other day, and he's a second year internal medicine resident right now. And then we had another scribe and another scribe. When I started my new DPC practice, there wasn't enough volume to necessitate having somebody follow me from room to room. It just wouldn't make sense to have somebody on the payroll to do that. Yeah. They would be twiddling their thumbs most of the day. And in DPC, as we know, the notes, you have to communicate with yourself and anyone that's seeing your patient and your medical legal requirements rather than getting these really complicated notes to satisfy billing requirements. All that to be said, now that AI scribes are on the block and so good, it has really revolutionized the way that I am able to chart and document and see patients. And so we wanted to have a discussion today just around what AI scribes are like or how you use them in your practice. I'll share first that I don't typically use an AI scribe for the bread and butter regular checkups, simply because copying and pasting the all normal vitals, all normal everything from one system to another is just not worth it for me to go through that hassle. My notes are pretty templated. I know what's typically done at a well check now. I know what the parents are going to say. If it's something off the beaten path, then I'll just write it down so that I remember to ask them about it next time. I'll put in their weight and height and head circumference as I do them, and then just go on my merry way. So I don't spend a lot of time with those straightforward checkups or a runny nose, cold, those sorts of things. But I've started doing a lot more visits because I've learned so much from Dr. Capella here about ADHD and autism and all those sorts of things. Those can be really complicated visits. And so for those, I don't want to try and catch everything, or I don't want to be sitting on my computer typing the whole time I'm trying to have this conversation about all the behaviors and things that a family is experiencing. And so that's the perfect opportunity for the AI scribe to really be there by my side, catching all of those things so that I can focus on the conversation flow, asking the questions of the things that I'm thinking about, and have it be much more organic feeling. And so that's my typical time where I use an AI scribe in my practice. And it's been quite revolutionary for actually documenting those things. How about you, Marina? When do you find yourself using one, or do you use one?
I do. And it was actually the DPC docs and the online Facebook groups for DPC docs that really got me interested in AI scribes. I started to hear a lot of physicians talking about them and how amazing they were, and this one and that one and the other one. And so the very first one that I tried was called Freed AI, Freed AI, and it had a free trial. Most of them have free trials that you can use, or really basic versions that you can use for free. And so I tried Freed, but the notes were too simple, too simplistic for me. They didn't have enough detail. And then I tried another one. It was actually an osteopathic medical student who was rotating through my clinic and said, oh, I have a classmate who has his own company already that's AI Scribe. And so I think I tried that one called Scribematic. And same thing, it wasn't enough detail, it wasn't robust enough. And then in the DPC women group, I heard someone mention Heidi AI, and they were like, oh, I really like this one compared to the others I've tried because it's more detailed and it's more robust. So I switched over to Heidi, and it still wasn't perfect, but I liked it better than the other ones.
Yeah.
And so I use Heidi a lot like you, Phil, where for the simple bread and butter visits, like the kid coming in for an ear check or for a cold or eczema or just like the typical like well child exams where there's not a
Right.
lot going on, I don't feel like I need to use it because that note takes me like 3 minutes to write after the visit, and I get to write it the way that I like it with my template already in place.
Yep.
And it's just so easy. So I don't really need it, right? However, I also do a lot of integrative consults, and I do autism evaluations, and I do just the very initial first visit for a new member that has a lot of complex concerns. That's when it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And I do bring it
Totally.
into the room with me just on my phone. I set it down on the table where it can pick up the audio from the parent and me, and I explain to the parent, hey, I hope you don't mind. I use this to record our session so that I don't have to spend 20 minutes writing a note afterwards. And
Yep.
I've never had a parent complain. They're like, oh, yeah,
Oh
that's
yeah.
totally fine. Right? And people are used to technology, right? And so those are the ones where it really saves me a lot of time, because some of those new intakes, when I'm spending a full hour getting information from the family, that's a
Yep.
lot of information that's been collated and a lot of information that needs to be transferred into a note. And even though none of these tools write the note exactly how I want it, they do a good enough job to get me about 70% of the way there. And then I have to go through and just edit it. So overall, it still saves me 70% of the time I would have been expending. I also, interestingly, in my MBA program, I took a class on AI. The class, there were a lot of people in the class who were very into AI, and they
Mm.
requested that they change the curriculum. So they created a course taught by an information systems guy specifically on AI and how to understand it, like the things that it can do and the things that it cannot do, and also like the ethics and the governance around AI in large
Sure.
organizations. But we also had to do some projects that helped us understand how AI actually works and how you train these neural networks to work, basically. And so through that process, I actually learned how to train Heidi templates
Yeah.
so that they actually write the note in a way that fits better for me. So during class one day, I like opened my Heidi account and I was like, oh, now I know how to actually train this to write the note more aligned with how I like my note. And I went ahead and I changed a bunch of things and I created new templates. And now I find that it's working much better for me. And it saves me now 80 or 90% of the time and much less editing that I have to do. How
Totally.
about you, Phil? Do you train any of your AI tools at all?
Well, the discussion that we were having was the fact that I've never paid for Heidi, and that still is the truth. I double checked. I used the free
Uh-huh.
trial version, and
Uh-huh.
so you can't train it quite as much. But on the flip side, it doesn't cost you anything either.
Sure.
My EMR Elation offers AI Scribe as well, but it's $100 or a couple $100 extra per month. And so I've just kind of been
Yeah.
stuck on how can I do it for free? And Heidi has
Hmm.
so far allowed for that. And so
Yeah.
I don't typically ask it to do extra things because I don't expect it to do other things at the current price point. But if I was more serious about
Hmm.
it, that is what I would do, is train Heidi to do that. The other tool that the
Yeah.
nurse practitioner in office really likes and uses is Open Evidence, which has
Hmm.
a free scribe built into it as well. And so there's so many different options out there. It's mostly
Yeah.
finding the one that fits your budget and fits your preferences, and then just figuring out how to most easily get it into your EMR, because the majority of them are outside of the EMR. And so you do at some point have to like copy and paste and transfer it
Yeah,
in there.
exactly. It's a little extra work. My EMR Atlas MD
Hmm.
also has an AI tool, but I think you have to like hit record and then you have to still somehow like transfer it in, which is a little
Yeah.
bit of a workaround. Basically, most EMRs nowadays are going to have a built-in AI tool. I know that Hint has
Right.
an AI tool also. And what's the other one? Sigma MD also has an AI add-on. Now, how robust they are, I'm not sure. Obviously, when it's something that's included for free, it's going to be more basic functionality.
Right.
It's if it's something that you're paying for, it's probably going to have more options and more customizability.
Right.
Phil uses the free version of Heidi. I use the paid one, which is something like 650 or 700 a year. So, but for me, because I liked that customizability, I felt like it was worth it because of the time and peace of
Yeah.
mind, right? That it saves me. And now that I know how to train those templates, I can make it work for me even more. I have even been able to use it to help write some of my autism evaluations
Hmm.
that used to take hours for me to like
Oh,
sit
totally.
down and write kind of like a term paper. And now that saves me, it's cut the time in half or more that it takes me to write those.
Those are probably the best use case that I've had for saving so much time is for autism evaluations. Like you, I would have to spend forever and it took forever and I never looked forward to it and always took
Yeah.
forever to get it done. And now
Uh-huh.
I've just uploaded, this is how I like it written, that sort of thing. And it makes it so much faster to be able to take the transcript of the multiple conversations that we've had. You can,
Yeah.
and what I'll do, since I don't have the paid version of Heidi, is I just strip the transcript of any identifying information so that
Yeah.
there's nothing that they have. And then I can take those transcripts and plug those into any of the AI, like Gemini has a BAA, but even if you don't have any PHI or
Hmm.
anything like that, put that all in there, put their GARs in there, put their ADOS in there, have it put a report for you together. And it's so much faster. So that's been really
Oh
transformational
yeah,
for me to do that.
definitely.
I want to show you
I
one
agree.
thing. If I can switch my camera over for 1 second, I'm going to show you what I do at an ADHD visit or something along those lines. So when I'm doing a ADHD evaluation or discussing with parent behavioral things or something that's more complicated, it's going to be a 20 to 60 minute plus visit. What I do is I turn on whatever scribe I'm using. And then I also have this little handy dandy iPad that I take in with me so that I can jot notes. This allows me to capture the big picture bullet point things so that I don't forget. And as we're going through to the discussion, like it is nice to have it transcribed at the end, but if I'm not
Uh-huh.
taking any sort of notes, then it's hard for me to remember what we've already said or those sorts of things. So
Yep.
basically, I have this little PDF that I have created. I blocked out the patient's name, but up here it just kind of has their chief complaint, HPI. Over here on the right hand side, it has like they like Nintendo. They're in fourth grade. They go to this school. The family history, those sorts of things. And then I always, so that I don't forget, have little boxes down here. Oops. Well, I don't know what that did there. That's messing it up. So the blue one is sleep, the green one is diet, the pink one is therapy, and then here at the bottom, this is the assessment, like what diagnoses they have. These are all the questions that I'm generating as we're
Hmm.
talking, that some of them I'll answer, or questions of things that we don't know. And then my plan right here. And Marina's like, wow, I can't believe
Hmm.
Phil's so organized at his clinical visit. If he could take some of that energy to other
A
aspects
little
of
bit of a
his
surprise.
life. I know, right? Can
I'll
you believe
admit.
it? But it's really helped me to make sure that like I have a consistent experience with the patients. I don't forget, oh, we didn't even talk about sleep, or we didn't talk about what other therapies they do, or those sorts of things. And then what I do is I take that document that I've handwritten on my iPad there and just upload it to the patient's chart. And that is as much for me what I read rather than necessarily all of the note that's been generated. If I have more questions, I'll go
Hmm.
back to the note. If I have more questions, I'll look through that. But the big picture of, okay, I'm wondering if we should start them on methylphenidate. And I wrote no next to that. I wonder what that was about. I want to get labs and I want to make
Hmm.
sure and get a celiac panel because they haven't had that done. And I want to send them a Vanderbilt and those sorts of things. Then when I leave the visit, I have those kind of notes of what I'm doing.
Yeah.
The other nice thing
The
about
to
Heidi,
do.
the to do, the Heidi has the really nice tasks that lets
Hmm.
you like see, okay, these are the things that I said during the visit that I'm going to actually
Yes.
do, so that I can checkbox those off of, okay, I sent them that form, I sent in that prescription,
Hmm.
that sort of thing gets all done there. I will say Elation does a really nice job now with their scribe tool, that it'll put things in the correct boxes. If I shout out that the patient is 46 pounds, it'll put it into the weight box. So then it'll show up in the growth chart. If I say I'm going to
Nice.
order a medicine, it will actually put on the task list, like order methylphenidate, and then I can click a button and it will open the prescribing little box so that I can
Mm-hmm.
actually prescribe that or order a lab,
Nice.
or it'll let me, like, I'm going to tell my nurse to send a Head Start sort of evaluation sort of thing. It'll create that and I can hit office message and then it'll say send Head Start evaluation, that sort of thing. So
Mm-hmm.
there are a lot of nice features that you then pay more for using
Yeah.
that integrated in there, that saves you from having to transpose the information.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. When it comes to, the tool that we both use, Heidi, I'm guessing I'm going to go out on a limb here, Phil, and say that I probably am a little pickier about how my notes are written than you are. That's, but,
True.
just like wanting specific level of detail. For example, I talk a lot to my families about nutrition. And so I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, what are they eating for breakfast, for lunch, for dinner, beverages, snacks? Is it white bread? Is it wheat bread? Like, are these
Right.
whole grains versus refined grains, microbiome, fermented foods? And so I want that level of detail. And a lot of the AI tools, they're like basic templates are going to just delete, or they're like not going to go into that much detail about those things. So for anyone who's in like functional medicine, integrative medicine, where we're asking like those in the weeds questions about lifestyle, that's where I think the more customizable templates really come in handy, because we want that level of detail. And, I just want it somewhere. I'm not necessarily going to go back and refer to it frequently, but I
Right.
want that initial intake note especially to be really comprehensive and have all those details, so that if ever down the line I'm like, wait, did we talk about this
Right.
yet, I can just go back and refer to that original note, and make sure that I asked the question, or that I followed through with something, or I gave them the right recommendation, etc.
I think one of the really powerful things about using a tool like this isn't so much at like, it's nice, the documentation and those sorts of things, and having, but being able to reference back and know what you talked about before, and regain that information that otherwise would have been lost if you were just trying to
Yeah.
type everything out. You'd get distracted, or the kid would sneeze and you'd get him a tissue and you'd forget to document the very specific nuanced thing that you wanted to ask. And just having somebody that's constantly listening and catching all those details makes for such a more robust documentation that then can be used down the line. Not that
Uh-huh.
this is an ad for any particular AI scribe or for any particular EMR, but one of the really nice things in Elation is you can ask the chart questions and it will tell you stuff. So if you had documented that previously and it was 2 years ago, you could say, like, what kind of bread do they eat? It would be able to look
Hmm.
back through your old
Yeah.
notes, find that information, and then they say, well, in 2026, you actually asked them that, and they said that they eat enriched white bread or something along those lines.
Let's talk a little bit before we close our conversation about kind of special cases with AI, because you have a tool that's listening to your conversation, and anyone in pediatrics knows that that exam room can get chaotic at
Right.
times, right? You can have, like, just the other week I had a new patient who's autistic, and he was pretty loud and like banging toys and interjecting comment, or like interjecting some things throughout the visit. And of course, as pediatricians, we're very like used to this, and we're able to focus on the parent while the kid, making sure the kid is safe to the side and is getting his needs attended to intermittently.
Right.
But AI scribes can have a little bit of difficulty when it comes to kind of parsing out what was
Mm,
going on during the visit, right? And sometimes they can get confused, which is why it's really important to review your note after and make the
sure.
necessary edits. But also in pediatrics, we often are seeing multiple kids in a family at the same time.
Yep.
And that's where it gets tricky. Have you had any experiences where that works, Phil,
Actually,
using
yes.
AI?
Using Heidi
Interesting.
just a couple weeks ago, I thought, oh, let's just do a double ADHD. They're siblings. They'll have enough of the same story that it'll be fine.
Uh-huh.
It wasn't fine. But I did
Interesting.
just, eventually I was like, fine, I'm just going to take notes on my iPad and we'll see what Heidi comes up with. And I asked
Uh-huh.
it, go through, one of the kids' names is Jane, one of the kids' names is John. Those are just made up names. Parse it together, make the notes. It did perfectly. Like, it was able to track what the
Really?
parents were saying without any trouble at all. And I even double
Uh-huh.
checked because I was like, this is going to be awful and I'm just going to use my iPad notes for this. But I asked it to reconstruct the notes as two separate kids and it did perfectly fine.
Mhm.
So I think that, I
Yeah.
mean, like if I can mentally put those things into buckets based on hearing them, then I'm sure AI can
Mhm.
do just as well with kind of
Yeah.
reconstructing those notes if you ask it. And the nice thing is you could always take the transcript, cut out all the PHI, put it into ChatGPT or Claude or whatever you use, and say, hey, this was two different patients, but it was a jumbled mess. Work your way through the transcript, figure out which kid goes with what story, and create some notes for me. And I think that would turn out
Mhm.
fine too.
Yeah. I guess the only case where I might see that being a little more problematic is like if you have a boy and a girl, that might work out because parents are saying he or she
Yeah.
appropriately, right? Versus if you had like twin boys, right?
Right.
And they're saying he, like I don't know that AI would do as great of a job, but that's really cool that it did in that particular circumstance. The
Well, you'd
other
have
thing
to make sure
to
that it
add is
wasn't a lot of, like, inaudible sorts of like, if they're just looking at one of the kids and expecting you to know
yeah,
that's Lucas versus
exactly.
Benjamin, then you'd have to make sure and be like,
Uh-huh.
"Okay, so Lucas is the one that likes to play basketball, and Benjamin," like,
Uh-huh.
you could do that. It would be
Yeah,
imperfect, but I think you could
sure.
probably get it pretty close if you were
Uh-huh.
intentional
Yeah,
about
but
it.
you have to do some of that repetition in order
Yeah.
to make sure it's picking it up. Yeah. The other cool thing about a lot of these AI tools is multiple languages. So I have
Yeah.
Spanish speaking patients and it has done a good job. I think I've only used it like twice with a Spanish speaking family, but it's done a really good job. So it's really cool. I don't know how many languages, obviously, probably doesn't have every language, but for more of the common languages that we see here in the US. It has some pretty robust functionality, which is really cool. And also, one of those interactions was the parent was kind of switching back and forth from English to Spanish, and it was still able to do a good job, which I was impressed with.
That is impressive then for sure.
Yeah.
I was going to say, so pick a tool, try it, see what works for you, ask friends, don't spend too much money on it, and realize that it's going to get better the more effort that you put into it. And if you can take the time to kind of customize it and figure out how it works, then you'll see how much time you recoup. But it's not like you just plug it in and expect it to be perfect for you. Just like any employee, you're going to have to work with them. You're going to have to kind of fine tune things, but that it'll be worth it in the end to give it the time that it needs to really save you a lot of documentation and be able to allow you to focus on what's most important, which is, in my opinion, not documentation.
Amen. I don't think any of us love that documentation time. That is not why we became
Yeah.
doctors. All right, everyone. Thanks for listening. Until next time.